Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Jacksonville Planning Advisory Board to order. At this time, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Bob and invocation by Dr. Lasana.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we just thank you for this evening that we can come together as a planning advisory board, and we just ask you on the blessing of this meeting tonight as we take on the matters at hand. We're just so thankful for the town we live in and how you blessed us here with the military presence and all the developments happened over all the time that I've been sitting on this board, and we ask your blessing on each of the members here of this board tonight, and our city council and our manager and just the people of Jacksonville. Let us start out this brand new year and just be so thankful for what we do have. And yes, there will always be challenges, Lord, but if we just put our faith and trust in you, it always works out. So just once again, be with us this evening as we take care of these matters with the city planning, and thank you for everything. In Christ's name we pray, amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, before we do the approval of the agenda, we'll let Mr. King introduce our new member, although if you've watched TV, you've probably seen him.
Thank you, Chairman. We'd like to welcome Mr. Nick Simenderis to the Planning Board. He is our Water and Sewer Advisory Committee representative that has been vacant probably for, how long has it been, Councilman Sosa?
3 years, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, man, it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but we look forward to having Mr. Simenderis on the board. We think that he will bring a lot of understanding and knowledge to the board, both from his role as a Water and Sewer Advisory Board member, but also given the fact that he's in the construction industry. So a lot of the stuff that we deal with on planning issues have a tie-in with construction. We work regularly with Mr. Simenderis, so we're looking forward to having him on the board. We're happy to have him. And welcome aboard. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you aboard, Nick. Okay, if you'll take a look at the agenda as presented. Any changes or corrections to the agenda? If none, then the motion will be in order.
I make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion by Dr. Lassan, second by Mr. Forney. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, like. Motion passes. I'm sure everyone's had a chance to review and look at the minutes. Any deletions, corrections, changes?
Sir, I'd like to move that we accept the minutes as presented.
We have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Dr. Lassan. Motion was made by Bob Dupuy. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, like. Motion passes. Okay, City Council update. Councilman Sosa, you're up.
Just excited to start a new year and looking forward to all the progress hopefully we'll be making this year. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Very much. There being no old business, we'll move right to new business. Jeremy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Advisory Board. Agenda item 1 is a rezoning request submitted for 3 parcels, 2704, 2710, and 2696 Richlands Highway. The request is to rezone from residential multifamily low density to corridor commercial. The request was submitted by B.R. Morton, LLC. Notice of vicinity map before you. These properties are located at the corner of Hickory Road and Richlands Highway. Area notable locations adjacent to it are the IHOP, Aldi, the Murphy Express, and Castrol Oil Change Quick Lube. These 3 properties are currently zoned residential multifamily low density. And again, their request is to rezone to corridor commercial. The Campbell Lane use plan has been identified as neighborhood commercial, therefore supporting this request for rezoning. We had a few phone calls when the signs went up. One of them was from one of the residents of the single-family homes that live there, They do not own the property, so this rezoning, if it went forward, would make single-family a non-conforming use. The homes could continue to exist there, but if they were to be damaged beyond 50%, they could not be reused, or the uses will have to go away. It is our understanding from the applicant's representative, Tidewater and Associates, that they plan on demolishing the single family once it's rezoned and moves forward for some potential development. This is what the map would look like if the rezoning is approved. The staff is recommending approval of this rezoning with findings of fact A through J being found in the affirmative, and that the rezoning advances the public interest by creating more development opportunities, and it would actually fill in kind of the last gap along Richlands Highway here of the corridor commercial. A couple of years ago, well, about 3 years ago, we rezoned some parcels next door to the Aldi to corridor commercial, and they were zoned the identical, just to give you some support. Again, Representative Lori Morris is here from Tidewater and Associates, and staff will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Seems fairly clear cut. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve the rezoning request. The facts of A through J in the affirmative, and this will advance the development along Highway 258, Richlands Highway.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Dr. Hassan, second by Bob Dupuy. Okay. Any other discussion? Seemed fairly clear. Yes,
I
sir.
would just say, having driven along through there, I didn't know that it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's,
And of course, if there's any development there, the part that backs up next to the residential multifamily low density will have to have some buffering.
Correct. It will be required a type A 30-foot vegetative buffer with fencing. With this motion and a recommendation for approval, this will be in front of the city council next Tuesday night at 5:30. Okay. Having
A motion properly made and seconded and discussion, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed like. Motion passes. Next up, it's Ryan.
So item number 2 is a staff-initiated Unified Development Ordinance text amendment as relates to 5.2 landscaping standards. Specifically, staff is seeking to eliminate stormwater device fence requirements. To kind of give the board some history, in 1998, city adopted a stormwater pond fence and landscaping requirements with an amortization, which meant all of the existing ponds would have to be in full compliance by 2003. And then back in 2011, we created amenity and utility ponds. The utility required a fence, the amenity did not. In fact, they were prohibited. And that led to some developments where they wanted to have the option to install fencing, even if it was an amenity, which led us to amend the code to require a decorative fence as an optional if a developer or owner wanted to put up a fence around an amenity pond. And then in 2022, we're back to, from a planning standpoint, we wanted to get out of the requirement of fences. Let it be an optional choice on the landowner, developer, with the caveat of we want it to look nice with a decorative style fence. During our, we had some conversations with the city council in September and November, and based on our research, we polled, the concerns were litigation. There's this thing called preemption, that we think that we have basically opened ourselves up for liability because we're requiring something that the state does not require as it relates to the stormwater rules. Obviously, there's some people are concerned that from a public safety standpoint, that they want to provide a barrier. So this will allow that to happen. And there's also some development opportunities and aesthetics that come into play as well as cost. So I'm going to kind of go over all of those items that we've talked about with the council. And one of the things they asked us back in September was, well, what are our neighbors doing? So you'll see on the slide that Onslow County, City of New Bern, Morehead City, City of Wilmington, City of Fayetteville, we pulled all of those jurisdictions, and nobody there requires fencing. And only the two here with more historic type areas have standards, but for the most part, there's no standards. It's pretty much do what you want. I'm going to show you some of that. So I'm getting ready to go through some examples. You can see some amenity ponds, some utility ponds, and all varieties of landscaping and fencing or none of the above. And it's going to be from all of those cities that I just kind of mentioned. So this is one at Moose Haven, where the old Ruby Tuesdays, which is now under construction for the new Jaggers. So this is an existing pond. It's an old chain link fence. It's not vinyl coated, so that tells me it was probably before the 1998 case. They have the landscape and the fence installed, but it's not the vinyl coated. This is at the Lowe's at Porter's Neck, so almost to Wilmington. Right next to a road here, once again, just a regular chain link fence, no landscaping on the perimeter, and but it's right next to the roadway. Not necessarily the most aesthetically looking item that you have there. This is Morehead City, behind the Walmart area. No fence, no landscaping for the most part, and right next to the highway. This is on the other corner. In this particular case, for whatever reason, there's some sort of a guardrail that's been installed. So actually, I can go with the assumption here that Walmart didn't do this side. This is the part of the shopping center. But on the Walmart side, Walmart chose to put up a guardrail. That's going to be my assumption here. That's all that is that's a guess. But basically, probably for liability concerns, they felt that it was necessary to install a guardrail. But no fence, no landscaping. And when you drive down the road, you may not even realize it. It probably depends on what lane you're in and what type vehicle are you in. You might, if you're low enough to the road, you might not even realize there's a pond there. Now, this is in New Bern. This is not only a chain link fence, but it's got barbed wire on top of it. Not a whole lot of landscaping, except down the back road there. It looks like that they left some sort of a hedgerow back there along. Not necessarily a requirement, just probably what was there. And here's an example of the hotel. I think this is the Hampton Inn in New Bern. If you look closely, they've got landscaping, but they also have a fence on the parking lot side. Everybody see the fence there? It's a black, I can't tell if it's vinyl, I think it's a vinyl coated fence, but basically it starts right there and it kind of wraps around right there closest to where, the patrons may be getting in and out of their vehicle as soon as they arrive in the hotel. Here's a Jacksonville Example. This is a black vinyl coated fence in front of the Best Buy and the Dick's Sporting Goods and the Big Lots. Heavily landscaped. Interestingly enough, because of the newer landscaping standards, when they expanded upon this site, they actually had to bring some landscaping, a portion into compliance. So if you look on the right-hand side, there's actually more vegetation than on the left, and that's because they had to do a part of that upgrade. This is Wilmington. This is near the Mayfair area. Really incorporated into the design. They got sidewalks next to it. Just a clean looking facility, maintained nicely. Another example here at Mayfair. Very minimal landscaping. You'll see mostly trees, and we'll kind of talk about that here moving forward in a second. Another example, Wilmington, you got houses across the street from them. So the development community, homeowners, in this particular case, they weren't worried from a liability standpoint about have a fence up around it. Some more Wilmington examples. Here's a New Bern example. Houses that are backing up to a pond over here. Nice tree line next to the sidewalk. Really a clean look. And I think that from a planning standpoint, that's really kind of what we're looking for. Something that has nice curb appeal and is clean looking. And this is an example south of Wilmington in Leland. It's actually a development. If you look, every one of these houses back up to a water feature. I've seen this in Florida as well. If you look closely, a lot of the houses have docks. They'll get on their canoe or their kayak and they'll stroll down the canal to the friend's house, and it's part of the development. So right now, you wouldn't be able to do this in Jacksonville because we require a fence around it. So we're losing on a development opportunity by having that fence requirement. You know, this is actually an amenity. I can tell you, if you just Google the prices of these houses in this neighborhood, this waterfront community, the housing prices are fairly high there. And that's what they're marketing it as a waterfront community. This is an example of a trail and greenway system in Fayetteville. If you had fence requirements, you know, you wouldn't be able to have this nice meandering asphalt trail, you know, as part of a recreation use, because we'd have a fence up next to it. So, you know, cost. So we actually reached out to some of the examples that I'll show you a slide on here in a minute, that we had 2 recent developments, and we asked about the vinyl coated chain link of a recent apartment complex, and it's $26 a linear foot. And the decorative fence, which was the Sandy Run Missionary Baptist Church, was $38 a linear foot. So you can see the decorative fence is a little bit more expensive, but we're going to get out of the requirement business. But if you choose to install one, we want it to be decorative. So here's the decorative fencing examples. Here's the Sandy Run example that I gave you just a minute ago. The Walmart Neighborhood Market at Carolina Forest. This is one where they install a fence, a chain link fence. They were in violation. We actually worked with them. They're actually part of the group that applied for the amendment originally when we created the decorative fence standard back in 2020. So we talked with the League of Municipalities during our research, and as I kind of alluded to already, the Green versus the City of Winston-Salem, talking to the League, they were worried about this preemption situation because the stormwater rules are state rules, and that the city just merely adopts those. And the stormwater rules do not require fences. So that kind of added some additional weight behind, we want to get out of the fence requirement business because we don't want to create a lawsuit situation where we're requiring something that the state law preempts us from being able to do so. So we think by eliminating the fence requirement, it'll reduce development cost, it'll open up development opportunities. You know, shrubs are not required. That was one of the things we had a conversation with council, is ways to try to basically reduce development costs or kind of offset if they end up doing the decorative. So shrubs, it's already written in the code, so we don't have to add any verbiage, but if you do the decorative fence, shrubs are not required. And we also talked about, well, is there a distance from the road in which you would need to be decorative versus not? And after the council meeting, we looked at some sites, and if we just put in a hard, fast rule, we may be requiring decorative fences if they choose to put one, when it's basically blocked on 2 or 3 sides by buildings and not even visible at the street level. So we chose not to include a dimension because we want to be able to have some flexibility. So if you'll look on the page 34 and 35, so the top of 35, it says, bottom of 34, top of 35, decorative fencing material will not be required when the city manager or their designee finds any of the following circumstance exists on the proposed building site or surrounding properties. Modification should be made in writing and shall be equally applied equally to all similarly situated properties. And it's A, the required decorative fencing would be ineffective due to proposed topography of the site and or the location for the improvements. And B, it's not visible from any public or private right-of-way. So we think that gives us more latitude to look at individual locations where it may be tucked in behind buildings, even though it may be within a certain number of feet, and not require that decorative fence, versus one that may be right beyond that dimension that's still visible. So, you know, when we adopted the UDO, we've added things like a flexibility and things just like this. In fact, I copied and pasted something similar for this section and then modified it to apply to the landscaping component. And Jeremy and I, we discussed that, and we feel like this gives us the most flexibility. There's also some manager oversight there, and we feel like that gives us the most flexibility possible. So with that being said, you've got the ordinance in front of you. Staff is recommending approval. Be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Other than the one that you mentioned, I think it was over at Carolina Forest, where there was some question or the developer pushed back a bit, has anyone else ever had a concern about the requirement?
I think the requirement, no. I think the bigger issue has been when we did not allow the fencing on an amenity pond. And for whatever safety, legal reasons, the insurance company, the development company, they wanted to install some sort of a barrier, but our ordinance didn't allow it. And that's why we made that change in 2020. That's been the bigger issue. In terms of a number, if you had 50 sites, 25 would put a fence up, 25 wouldn't. So it's really hard to say. We've had this standard in place since the late 90s, so as long as I've been here. So I'm not sure what the numbers moving forward, what we'll see. I know that with some of the recent ones, they're not even doing the 100% around the ponds. Like the hotel example that I shared, we have a church here that opted to install a decorative fence, and it only is next to the parking lot facility. It's not next to the roadway. So I think we'll probably see stuff like that as well. And there's a way to kind of make that look nice. Once again, that's kind of really, we want to get out of the requirement business and say, if you're going to do it, then it's got to be nice looking, decorative. And that's better. And the other thing that we're going to consolidate these two, we're no longer going to have an amenity in a utility pond. Because once again, we felt like that was kind of messing with, our ordinance was doing something contrary to the state stormwater rules. So we're not going to have an amenity in a utility moving forward. We're just going to have stormwater devices, basically.
Ready for a motion, sir?
Yes, sir.
I'd like
Well, I
to-
think we already had a motion, didn't we? We didn't?
Well, I asked a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'd move, sir, that the Planning Advisory Board recommend to council to approve the Unified Development Ordinance text amendment that we have been discussing, as this amendment advances the public interest.
Second motion.
Good, we have a motion by Bob, second by Grace. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, like. Motion passes.
Thank you, Chairman, planning board members. As Jeremy stated in the previous item, this item as well as his item will both be in front of City Council next Tuesday. So starting with 2023, City Council's meeting at 5:30. So no longer at 5 o'clock, it'll be at 5:30 here in council chambers. With that being said, I just would like to tell the board Happy New Year and look forward to what 2023 will bring the citizens of Jacksonville.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, a motion to adjourn is in order.
So move, sir.
Motion to adjourn, do we have a second?
Second.
Meeting is adjourned.